On September 11, 2001, 19 terrorists hijacked 4 airplanes. 2 of them crashed into the World Trade Center skyscrapers in New York City. Another destroyed part of the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. It is believed that the 4th was intended for the White House or the Capitol building, but passengers on board fought back, and it ended up crashing in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The attacks resulted in the deaths of nearly 3,000 people and left America in a state of shock. To this day, there are still many questions regarding the motive behind the attacks.
Okay, on September 11th, I was at the World Financial Center in downtown Manhattan. I had just started my day. I heard an explosion. Wasn't sure quite what it was. My colleague called me over to the window. We looked out the window. We saw the World Trade Center on fire. As we were looking at the fire start to spread, we were unsure what had caused it. When a second plane came in and hit the other tower, at that point we knew it was a terrorist attack. We rapidly left the building at that point in time and went out into the street. I stood out in the street for a little bit of time trying to figure out what was going to happen. I was at the Southport Marina when the North Tower fell, and at that point in time we basically ran away from the debris and the smoke that was spreading from the falling of the tower.
The Saudi fugitive Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda terrorist organization was in retaliation for America's support of Israel, America's involvement in the Persian Gulf War, and their continued military presence in the Middle East. Al-Qaeda felt that the U.S. threatened the establishment of Islamic governments, and they wanted to push all U.S. influence from Muslim land.
There were many suspicious activities leading up to 9/11 that went unnoticed or were not acted on by the government. On August 11, 2001, President Bush was warned of a possible attack, but he was on vacation and ignored the warning. Throughout the month of August, many of the hijackers, who obtained legal visas under their actual names, began and completed flight training in different places around the country. One hijacker raised suspicions when he claimed to want to learn how to fly a 747 jet, but didn't want to get a pilot's license. On August 21st, a Jordanian in prison for suspected terrorism ties told FBI agents of an impending attack against buildings in New York and Washington, D.C., saying, "Something big is going to happen." The CIA learned that 2 known al-Qaeda operatives were in the U.S., but kept this information from the CIA. Also, all the hijackers bought knives from places like Target and Sports Authority and American Airlines plane tickets in the same few days leading up to the attack. On September 10th, the day before the attack, all the hijackers emptied their bank accounts into one account linked to Osama bin Laden.
The question comes down to whether the terrorists who carried out their devastating plan, or the United States of America and the failure of their defense system, was ultimately responsible for what happened on September 11, 2001. Although the U.S. was aware that al-Qaeda could be a potential threat after bin Laden had attempted to blow up the World Trade Center in 1993, the U.S. defense system was not prepared for what would happen if this threat were to turn into a reality. America's lack of security and continued military involvement in the Middle East is questionable, but were the consequences that al-Qaeda presented too severe?
The U.S. did not have the airport security necessary to catch the 19 hijackers who easily smuggled box cutters and knives through 3 East Coast airports and boarded 4 flights bound for California. Had the U.S. been able to detect the weapons that were located in the pockets of their clothing, they would have avoided the series of events that followed. Additionally, the hijackers bought their box cutters and knives from Sports Authority, Target, and Lowe's, all seemingly innocent places for what they would be accessory to. If the U.S. had been aware of the suspicions mentioned previously, perhaps these weapons would not have been handed to the terrorists as easily as they were. Not to say that they might have found another way to obtain these weapons had Sports Authority, Target, and Lowe's not given it to them.
George Bush claimed that the United States was targeted because of its beliefs of freedom and democracy. Many other sources believe that anti-Americanism rests on feelings that the U.S. obstructs freedom and democracy. For example, in the Middle East, the United States supports Israeli oppression of Palestinians. They provide military and economic support that makes oppression possible. The U.S. has supported the groups that have supplied U.S. companies with large oil profits and have helped fight against rebel groups that challenge these exchanges. The U.S. has obviously been one-sided in their involvement in the Middle East, and many believe that this was the major motive for the terrorist attacks against this nation.